It's now time to bring you our focus on the show today. This is one of the biggest stories that made the headlines during the week. Several major oil and gas projects in Nigeria suffer further delays as international oil companies operating, and the country saw their financial take a dive in the second quarter of this year. The slump in oil prices caused by the coronavirus pandemic has forced many companies, including IOCs, to slash their capital budgets and also suspend some projects. The global oil benchmark, that's the Brent crude, plunged to as low as $15.98 a barrel earlier in the month of April, its lowest since June 1999. It also traded around $44 per barrel as at Monday this week, and by Friday traded at $45.35 a barrel. I now have with me via Skype the managing partner of Zenera Consultant, Mecca Olowola. Good to have you on the show today. Now, let's start off with your take on the report, looking at the fact that we are seeing a stall in oil projects, and then you see IOCs, international oil companies, recording quite huge dives when it comes to their earnings and budgets, and then we are seeing further slashes as a result of the COVID-19.
Well, generally speaking, oil prices are determined by market forces, and which means that, what is going on, whether it's speculation or fundamental, is affecting, or likely affects, production. And that's because when you have, the vagaries, in the marketplace, it starts to affect, the ability for IOCs, to make a profit, because production costs are likely fixed, all over the world, but market prices, tend to, vary from time to time. So anytime it goes below what the cost is, where you can recoup a comfortable margin, then it becomes a problem. And in Nigeria, IOCs are responsible for over 70% of oil production in Nigeria, right? And so they need capital projects and investments to be able to produce at optimal levels and be able to ramp up production.
And talking about
yes,
talking about ramping up production now, how robust would you say we need to have in terms of investment? And at the end of the day, looking at our refining capacity as well, doing a vis-a-vis comparative analysis with how much of a demand we have, both locally and then on the global front.
Okay, so let's take production first, and then we'll go to refinery. Or refining later. So right now, Economic Confidential report is that oil projects, valued at, around $58 billion are on hold currently, right? And that's because, like you rightly said, IOCs are recording monumental losses, in some cases unprecedented losses. We've seen Shell declare their results, their Q1 results. We've seen ExxonMobil, we've seen Chevron, we've seen Agit, and consistently across board, everyone is recording losses, all right? So they are unable to bring projects to what they call final investment decisions, right? So you have plans, you want to bring on stream, certain projects like Shell. In the case of Shell, they wanted to bring the Bonga Southwest, Aparo field to production, which will have contributed about 10%, to the total crude production in Nigeria, and will have been the largest since we saw Total's Egina, come on stream.
Exactly.
So all those things are being shut in now because they are unable to fund them profitably, right? So usually what happens is that when you have all of those, oil prices, at unpredictable levels, you fall back on your own refining capacity, right, to maintain the local market, right? But unfortunately, in the case of Nigeria, it is non-existent. We don't have any refining capacity to meet between the 35 million liters to up to 60 million liters that we require, per day in Nigeria. A lot of it goes, to neighboring countries, we know that. But Nigeria consumes about, you can say maybe between 45 to 50 million liters every single day. So imagine having to rely on imports for all of this, which is what is happening here. So we have a very dire situation going on here with oil prices, being at levels that we don't see any reinvestment in the sector. We see OPEC asking us to cut down production, right, so that oil prices can go up. And then we can take advantage of refining capacity to take care of the local market. That's where we find ourselves now.
And if we were to correct this narrative at this point in time, what steps would you say we should take in terms of redefining what we've had as the norm? And at the end of the day, when you listen to the concerns of the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, it says this is the point where we have to cut production levels as much as possible and we have to work on our refining capacity. You look at the NNPC stance as well. When you also look at the track record of production, it's not quite exciting figures we are dealing with at this point in time, but they are optimistic. Do you share that level of optimism as well?
I'm an eternal optimist, right? But let's look at the fundamentals and the numbers, and then be able to make reasonable forecasts, right? Now, in June, right, we had to. So OPEC Plus came and said, everybody needs to discipline themselves with production costs so that oil prices can go up, right? And when Nigeria, Angola, Russia, Iraq decided to align with that decision, we saw a rallying. So oil prices went up a bit, right? Now, in May, we then decided to start to comply, and then we moved down, from 1.8 million barrels a day to 1.6, right? Now, we saw that happen, and in June, we went to 1.58, million barrels per day, right? And then, so oil prices started staying at those levels that you saw, right? Hovering in the 40s. Now we are 45 as of today, right? We stayed, put in July, and we had, the same result as well. Now, as we are coming down, we are keeping oil prices low, but remember that in aggregate terms, that also reduces our revenues because you're reducing, the pump rates and the production that you're putting into the market, right? Now, OPEC has come to say for August, they will be more, aggressive because they are sharing news now, and they're going to increase total, production by 2 million, right? So Nigeria can go up again from the 1.41, million barrels cap that we had. Now, so all of this is happening on one hand, right? And the optimism that the minister is expressing is the fact that with COVID, restrictions being eased out now, we're seeing a bit of, activities pick up. We're seeing excitement around, people starting to move around production, starting in factories. We're seeing, a bit of traveling, not as much as we would love, but people have started to go to work and move around. So all of that will have a positive impact on, demand for crude oil, right? Now, the downside is coming back home and going back again to my point earlier on made about the lack of refining capacity. How are we going to take care of that, right? So you have a huge chunk in terms of subsidizing, a product that has now, hopefully gone away with the price modulation that we have, right? Now, so Nigeria should be able to save at least $5 million per annum from subsidy renewal. So if you just oppose that with increased revenues coming from oil prices and, the gradual ramping up that we're seeing or rallying, right? Nigeria should be in a better position, a more comfortable, maybe slightly, but a more comfortable, position to do something for the populace, right?
Okay. And in terms of doing something for the populace, Mecca, we are wrapping up our conversation now. Every single sector of the economy, both local and international, are basically ruling on survival instincts. What are the latest and most strategic moves to be made? But at this point in time, where we are slowly seeing a recovery in oil prices and demand as well, but locally and globally as well. Now, checkmating the spike, or should we say, controlling the spike in prices, like you've rightly mentioned, for the populace, we have to just devise some internal measures to be able to stabilize the prices so that we don't necessarily go along with the market forces and demand, but rather still tilts to the concerns of the layman on the street who has to buy fuel for his or her business, for their household essentials, and for work.
David, see, I share your position, very fully, and your sentiments are in order, totally not unfounded. But the problem is corruption, right? If there were
no talk of subsidy at this point in time.
Yeah, no. You see, because you're saving now pump price, at the retail, station, the fuel price is about 150 naira. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. Now what is happening is that government has taken away subsidy effectively, right? We're in deregulation now, right? Even if it's a quasi deregulation, but deregulation of some sort. Now, what is happening is, if you're able to save that money and then you apply it back into the economy, right? And then you are having some saving, from oil prices that are, rallying. What are you doing with all that money? If that money was coming back into the economy, then we shouldn't be having, stamp duties. We shouldn't be having VAT going up to 7.5. It's a time that it should be coming down, because unemployment is at close to 30%, right? Mm. So that's very huge. And there's inflation, there's all sort of, restriction to the economy growing. How do you want the common man to survive when you then have, VAT at 7.5, you then have stamp duty again slammed on that person, and transportation is not, optimal in Nigeria? You have to address those issues. We need to do something about rail. We need to do something about transportation, that in other economies, that's what they've done. When they know that there's no, subsidy, which is rightly so, because you need to develop the entire economy. So don't look at it, just from one dimension alone. So I support the regulation. What I don't support is how the savings are being administered, right? To benefit, the populace. So we need to review all of that. Refinery is a perennial shame on this country, right? We need to do something very aggressively, and I will never stop talking about that.
Well, it's time to take action. Thank you very much for your contribution on the show today.